Welcome, grade 9s. In today's session, we're going to look at changes in demand and supply as a result of factors other than a change in price. Now, let's just recap a little bit of what we have learned so far about demand and supply. You can recall that we said right in the beginning of our first session, what is the law of demand? And the law of demand is if price goes up, then demand goes down. Other way, if price goes down, then demand will go up. So the more expensive something is, the less usually the client or consumer would demand of that specific product. The cheaper the product is, the more the client would demand of that product or service for that matter. If we quickly look at supply, what does the law of supply say? The law of supply says if the price goes up, then it means the supplier will supply more. At a higher price, the supplier will supply more. If the price goes down, then the supplier will also supply less of that product or service to the market, because obviously the supplier will get less for their products or services. We also said that the demand curve has a negative or an inverse slope, where the supply curve has a positive or an intuitive slope, as we can see there on our graph. Now, we also said for the law of supply and the law of demand to be true, there shouldn't be, only price should be the deciding factor. So if price changes, then it has an effect on the demand or the supply curve. Lots of other factors can also influence the demand and supply, but we didn't look at that in our previous sessions. But this is what we are going to look at today. Okay, so let's start with demand. And we have our Twiggles chips here as well. So I want you to think a little bit of the following. Let's say you get, every week you get a certain amount of pocket money to bring to school. Your parents give it to you, you can spend it on anything. And usually you would like to buy some of the Twiggles, but normally you might not have enough pocket money, or you spend it on something else as well. So let's say you get 10 Rand a week pocket money to spend at school, at the tuck shop, or to buy the Twiggles. Now, say your parents tell you, listen, we are now going to increase your pocket money to 20 Rand a week. All right, so now you have more income, you have more money in your hands. So that might influence you to go and buy the Twiggles that you normally would not have bought. Now let's have a look at that. So the price hasn't changed. I'm still charging, say, 5 Rand or 4 Rand or 6 Rand, but now you have more money to spend. So what will happen? If people have more money to spend, what do you think will happen to the demand for a specific product or service? Yes, you are right. The demand will usually increase if there is more money in the hands of the customer or the client. So let's say, for example, now at 6 Rand, because people have more money to spend, as with our schedule that I've already drawn up, at 6 Rand, usually only 10 students were prepared to buy the Twiggles of chips. But because more students now have more pocket money, now let's say 20 students are prepared to pay 6 Rand for a packet of chips. So if we go from here 20 up next to and meet where the 6 Rand is, more or less here. So at 6 Rand, now because the students have more pocket money, there will be more students being prepared to pay 6 Rand for the packet of chips. If the price is perhaps 5 Rand and we still look at the situation where the students have more money, then not 20 will now require or demand a packet of chips, want to buy a packet of chips. Now 30 students are prepared to buy a packet of chips at 5 Rand. So what happens if we go up and it's more or less over here? Yeah, more or less over here. Right, and let's say the price was R4. If more students had more pocket money, then obviously where it was previously 30 students demanding Twiggles at R4 a packet, now there might be 40 students demanding Twiggles at R4. So can you see what happens to our demand curve? There is a shift to the right of the original demand curve, and we can also connect these dots, and let's just call them now the new one, demand one curve. So that is when people perhaps, as we said, have more spendable income. Maybe I've put up some nice posters in the corridors, and I've advertised that the Twiggles chips, it's value for money, it's a big packet of chips, it's 100 grams, and more people get to know about the Twiggles that we're selling for fundraising. So also that might make them more aware of the product, so there will be more students demanding the product at a specific price. So the price, if I look at R6, it's still R6, but now 20 students want to buy this packet of chips. If the price was R5, but because more income, more advertising, lots of other factors, more people are now demanding the product at that specific price. So that is a shift to the right of the graph, meaning more people demand the product at that specific price as a result of changing income, more income. Now let's take the same situation. Take COVID-19, the lockdown, lots of people losing their jobs, money is very tight. So where you normally received R5 a week, R10 a week pocket money, now your parents say, listen, we can't give you pocket money, we can only give you pocket money every 2 weeks because we're in a tight financial situation. What is going to happen now? The price that I'm selling it at, that it's in the market, has not changed. If we start again with R6, now there will be fewer people. Originally 10 people wanted to buy or were prepared to pay R6 for a packet of Twiggles chips, but now the financial situation is really a bit dire, and we say, listen, there's no one who's prepared to pay R6 for that packet of chips anymore because we do not have that income or that pocket money anymore. So what will happen now is you will see that the curve, if we say nobody wants it, let's just do it there so that you can see there's the 0. So no student is prepared to pay R6 for that packet of Twiggles chips. Okay, so let's say the price was R5, where originally we had about 20 students who said, yes, I'll buy the packet of chips for R20. Now, for 20 students, I'll buy it for R5. Now there's less money. Fewer students can now afford to pay R5 for that packet of chips. So let's say only 10 students will now be prepared to pay R5 for the packet of chips. So if we go up and here, it would more or less be here. If the price was R4 and the same situation applied, we can say, okay, where it was previously 30 students saying, yes, we want to buy this packet of Twiggles chips at R4, it's a very good price. Even at that price, the price hasn't changed, but because students now have less money, then there will be fewer students demanding it. So maybe only 20. So if we do this then, and we combine or we connect our dots, now we can see a new demand curve. So if the demand for a product decreases at the same price, price stays the same, but the demand changes due to other factors, we can see that the demand curve shifts to the left, and that will be a decrease in demand. So to the left, that's a decrease, and if there's an increase in the demand, it moves to the right. Good. I hope that makes a little bit more sense. You can also go back to our previous PowerPoint presentations where we discussed demand and supply so that you can see what are all the different factors that would influence either an increase in demand at the same price and a decrease in demand at the same price. Good. Let's move over to our supply curve. Same thing applies here now. So I'm now the supplier. I'm supplying these Twiggles chips. The price has not changed. We already drew our normal supply curve where we said, as the teacher, at 6 Rand, if I can sell the Twiggles at 6 Rand, I'm prepared to put a lot of Twiggles there in the class for selling for fundraising, because we'll make more profit. Nee? So we said at 6 Rand, we will supply 30 packets of chips to the market. If I can sell the packet of chips for 5 Rand, little bit less profit, obviously, so then the supplier is prepared to supply 20 packets of chips to the market. Only at 4 Rand, really not much profit, so the suppliers will not be happy to supply a lot of products or services to the market. In this case, only 10 items or packets of chips into the market. And there we got our original supply curve, as you can see. Good. Now, let's say once again, the price stays the same, but there's other factors that will influence the supplier's choice to supply more or less to the market. Now, let's take a very good example. Currently in our country, the petrol price has gone down tremendously since the start of, or beginning of March, middle March in 2020. So, petrol transport cost is usually quite a big chunk of the production cost of a product or a service, for that matter. Products may be a bit easier to understand. So typically, it will cost me now much less to make this final product, or to get this final product, due to the fact that the petrol price is much lower. So the total cost of my product will decrease as a result of that, and therefore at the same price I will be prepared as the supplier to supply more to the market, because I know that I can get more, I will make more profit on that product, even if the price is the same, because my production costs decrease. Now let's have a look at that. So if we start here, in the beginning we said, listen, at 4 Rand, we only prepared to supply 10 packets of chips to the market for the students to buy. But now, because I can make more profit on this product, because my production costs are lower, let's say at 4 Rand, I'll be prepared to put 20 packets into the market. So 4 Rand, 20, okay, more or less over here. Good. If we go to the next price, if we say at 5 Rand, then I know I can even make more profit, because my production costs are now lower as a result of the lower petrol price. So where I previously was happy to supply 20 packets of chips to the market at 5 Rand, now I am prepared to supply 30 packets of chips at 5 Rand to the market. So can you see once again, 5 Rand, 30, okay, more or less over here. Good, yeah, it looks all right. And then if we take the last scenario, still at 6 Rand, we have previously was prepared to supply 30 packets of chips to the market. I know I can make much more profit now, so I'm prepared to give or supply 20 packets of chips and 40 packets of chips at 6 Rand because my production costs are lower. So at 6 Rand, I am now prepared to supply 40 packets of chips. Okay, more or less here. Okay, so what do? We once again connect our points on the graph, and that will be our new supply curve that indicates that supply has changed as a result of factors other than price. Price stayed the same, but we were prepared, or the suppliers were prepared, to supply more of those items. So once again, if the supply curve moves to the right, it means that there will be an increase in supply. Okay, now let's say, for example, this foil type of wrapping that the chips are put in. Let's say we import this from overseas. Now, you know that all international flights, or most international flights, are still grounded. There's very, very little air traffic at the moment as a result of COVID-19. So if we need to import this, we are either going to wait very long or pay premium prices for this foil packaging, for example. So now, all of a sudden, my input cost or my production cost or the cost of my raw materials has now increased. Nothing else changed, but the price hasn't changed, but my cost as the supplier have increased. Now, what effect will this have on my supply of my product to the market? Because it now costs me more to make the product or to get the final product, I might not be prepared to supply as many products at a specific price to the market because it might not be worth my while. Okay, so let's have a look at that. Where previously I was perhaps prepared to supply 10 packets of chips at 4 Rand, maybe my profit margin was little, but I was still making some profit. Now at 4 Rand, I might not be prepared to put any packets of chips into the market, supply to the market, because I won't make any profit or hardly any profit. So at 4 Rand, let's say, for example, I'm not prepared to supply any amount of Twinkels chips to the market. It's just not worth my while. Good. If we take the next amount at 5 Rand, where I originally was prepared to supply 20 packets of chips to the market at 5 Rand, now I might say, it's not worth my while. My production cost, my cost of my raw materials have increased. I will not make a lot of profit. I'm only going to supply 10 packets of chips if I can get 5 Rand, or if the price in the market is 5 Rand for a packet of chips. Okay, last scenario, last case scenario, if it's 6 Rand, if a packet of chips is 6 Rand in the market, and previously in my original curve, I was prepared to supply 30 packets of chips to the market because I was making quite a nice amount of profit. But now, as a result of my increase in my cost of raw materials, I will only be prepared to supply 20 packets of chips at 6 Rand. So can you see 6 Rand, 20 units, more or less there. So can you see what happens now? Pardon, excuse my skew line here. If the supply decreases at the same price hasn't changed, but as a result of something else, factors other than price, cost of raw material, transport, etc., then the supply curve will move to the left, and that means my supply has decreased at that specific price because of reasons or factors other than a change in price. Okay, great, nice. I hope this made a bit of sense so that you can see how does other factors influence demand and supply in the market, even if price stays the same. And hopefully you can apply this as well. In the next session, I would like to talk a little bit about supply and demand in the times that we are in now, where the normal pattern of supply and demand really does not apply to certain products and services, and that is quite an interesting discussion on its own. Right, I'll see you next time again.